Thank you for calling the Starship Helpdesk. Goat King speaking. Your crew is scattered and your ship is sinking? We can help with that. First, I want to mention there's an awesome cheat sheet that I will have linked both in the description and it's on my Discord. Specifically, there's an updated version of it on my Discord, as well as a link to the original. The first step is knowing what you need from your character sheet to take into Starship combat. For a captain, the three biggest things you're going to need are your Intimidate, Diplomacy, and Bluff skill bonuses. Optionally, knowing what your Acrobatics or Athletics skill bonus is, whichever one's greater, as well as your Computers, Engineering, Mysticism, and Piloting skills, as well as what your bonus would be for a gunnery check, which would be either your base attack bonus or your skill ranks in piloting plus your dexterity modifier. At level 6, you'll need to know how many resolve points you have and quite possibly how many ranks you have in the various skills you've pulled from your character sheet. What do you need from the Starship's character sheet itself? In short, everything. But I'll go over that later, and it's not as intimidating as it sounds. As the captain of the ship, you can act during any phase of combat. The only important detail is you want to act before the person you're helping, because your role on a starship is mostly support. As the ship's captain, you'll need to know what kind of actions you can take to benefit your party. A push action is one that can only be performed if the system the push action relies upon is not malfunctioning or wrecked. As captain, your bread and butter, your most important action is going to be Encourage. The DC for Encourage is a 15 for a diplomacy check, or a 10 if you use a skill that matches the role you're trying to aid. For instance, if you want to help your engineer, you can either make a DC 15 diplomacy check, or if you have the engineering skill, a DC 10 engineering check. The Encourage action grants your target a +2 on their check. Your next action is Demand. Demand is a more powerful version of Encourage, but you can only use it once per target during a starship combat. Demand is an Intimidate check, DC 15 plus 1.5 times the starship's tier. On a successful demand, your target gets a +4 on their next skill check that round. Your third option as a captain is the Taunt action, DC 15 plus 1.5 times the enemy starship tier. It's a Bluff or Intimidate check. When you do this, you target a specific phase of combat to taunt the enemy ship. On its success, enemy crew members acting during that phase take a -2 or a -4 on all their checks for 1d4 rounds. This action is a push action, so if the sensors are malfunctioning or wrecked, you can't perform this action. An option you unlock at level 6 is Orders. This is a push action, so it will depend on whether the person you're aiding is using a malfunctioning or wrecked system or not to determine whether you can actually perform this action. It's a DC 15 plus 1.5 times your starship's tier, and the skill you use depends on who you're aiding. For instance, if you are aiding your pilot, you would need to use your piloting skill. On success, the crew member gets to take a second action during their phase of combat that must be different from the first. The Order action requires you burn 1 resolve point. At level 12, you unlock the action Moving Speech. This action requires you spend 1 resolve point, and the DC is 20 plus 1.5 times the starship's tier. It's a diplomacy check to give a moving speech during one combat phase. And for the rest of that phase, if you should succeed, all remaining crew members roll twice and take the better result. How do you role-play the captain on a starship? The suggestion I'm going to give you is that the captain should be the one who always holds the starship's character sheet. Everybody needs information from the character sheet. If the captain is the one holding that sheet, you get to distribute that information as roleplay. Again, thank you for calling the Starship Helpdesk. This has been Goat King. I hope what I had to say was helpful to you, and maybe now you can wrangle those crew members.